Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the guests, the volunteers, the staff members, and the board members of the Gathering Place, I welcome you into this space. I welcome you at what I believe is a very important moment in the life of the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. There are many images connected with this moment which I think are important to reflect on for a moment. First of all, what we will hear this morning will be the fruits of work done by members of all the parties that we have elected to the House of Assembly. And they have taken careful time, almost 2 years, to look at the state of mental illness and addictions in our province, and they have prepared a joint report for the government's consideration. The second image is with whom they consulted. They talked first and foremost to persons who have suffered through mental illness and addictions. They have spoken with their loved ones. They have spoken with their advocates. They have spoken with community agencies, Indigenous communities, regional health authorities, healthcare providers, and then the rest of us. So they have taken the time to consult with people right across this province. They then sent their report to government, and the government has responded within the time frames they set by presenting the action plan we will hear this morning. That the Premier himself has chosen to come to present that action plan to the people of this province is itself an important image. And where this report is being presented is also important. In this space, which you have walked through, you have met people who are deeply concerned that we as a province have not yet found a way to have a sound base for people who have concerns with respect to mental illness and addictions. The very title of the action plan is itself an image towards recovery. And as my grandfather would say, that's a double meaning word. Towards recovery for individuals, but also towards recovery for a health system that has not been able up till now to respond appropriately. But the most important image of all is contained in the report, and I am sure will be reflected in the action plan. It's our final awareness of the intersections of so many failings among us. The intersections of poverty, lack of safe and stable housing, unemployment, homelessness, lack of food security, illiteracy, physical illness and mental illness, and lack of social supports. For reasons none of us can quite understand, there are intersections among all of these elements of our society, and we can only respond by recognizing the intersections and dealing with them, not one by one, but all in an interconnected, interrelated way. And so we welcome this moment. We welcome it knowing it's not the beginning of a journey, but it's certainly a very important step on that journey. And we welcome it, the people gathered in this room from so many places in our society. We welcome it by giving it the attention it deserves, but even more, by making a commitment this morning to make sure that this truly does happen. It will not be an action plan, it will truly be action. And so I welcome Premier Dwight Ball to this space, to this room, to this moment, and ask him to speak to us, the people of Newfoundland and Labrador. Premier Ball.
Thank you, Sister Elizabeth, and what an individual to actually provide some context and an introduction to today's announcement. There's no one, when I think about all those around our province, that could do a more appropriate or would be the more appropriate person to make to share this moment with us today. So thank you, Sister Elizabeth. Towards recovery. And when I look around, I see so many people here in this room today. We have our MHAs over here, John Finn and Mark Brown, Scott Reed, Hal Atkins, and Sherry Gamma-Mosh, Lisa Dempster. We have Bernie Davis, and I see Jerry Rogers down here. Tom Osborne standing in the back. I might have missed one or two, I'm not sure, but it's certainly a privilege for me to be here today, to be joined by those my colleagues in the House of Assembly, and of course with Minister Hagee, who was here as well. So it is my pleasure to be here this morning for this significant announcement, but before I begin, I want to acknowledge the fire that occurred last evening on Froude Avenue, which directly displaces some 20 tenants due to the fire. So last night we saw the immediate focus was to find emergency shelter for all the displaced tenants. Our Newfoundland and Labrador housing staff stayed on site and until all tenants were appropriately relocated. So tenants were provided emergency accommodations in various hotels, and some chose to stay with family and friends, in true Newfoundland and Labrador style, I would say. And this morning there will be counseling services available through the center, and I want to express my sincere thank you to the staff at the Froude Avenue Community Center, to Marguerite's Place, to the Red Cross, and to the Salvation Army, and of course to the emergency responders last evening. But today is an announcement that marks our commitment to supporting the changing face of healthcare in communities throughout our province. I would like to give special thanks to Joanne Thompson and our team here at the Gathering Place for hosting us today, and to you, our partners in providing frontline services. As someone who spent the better part of my career on the front lines as a community pharmacist in a rural community, I fully appreciate your role and your value in supporting health and the well-being of our residents. I can remember through my career so many calls and so many face-to-face chats that I would have had with people, as Sister Elizabeth mentioned. People were looking for something, looking for support, looking for help. And all too often, those services and those helps were just out of reach. So today's announcement is significant, and like you have seen the many changes in the delivery of health services, as well as a greater understanding of mental health. It's been slow, but through local and national advocacy, today we are better able to support the mental health and well-being of our residents. We're also breaking down stigmas associated with mental health. So we cannot thank people like Clara Hughes, like Tree Walsh, like Mark Gruchy, or the corporate initiatives like Bell Let's Talk, which started a much-needed conversation about mental health. Their work has stressed that mental health has no boundaries. It is not defined by income, by geography, by age, or by gender. It impacts all of us. They started a movement which is gaining momentum and created an understanding that supports the need to be accessible in our communities. Minister Hagee will touch on this shortly, but the key elements of our government's vision was outlined in the way forward, which was achieving better outcomes for the significant investment that we make every year in healthcare. The status quo is no longer acceptable. A key element of this is how we best transform our mental health and addiction services, how those services are provided in our communities. This priority commitment was reinforced when we accepted all 54 recommendations of the All-Party Committee on Mental Health and Addictions. Their work marked a critical step in the plan that we are embarking on today and placed a spotlight on the important area of the province's mental health, and I thank all those who contributed in the final set of recommendations. Our mental health and addictions plan is our vision of a province that promotes positive mental health, well-being, resilience. It is a plan that provides support for individuals and families with lived experience in all areas of our province to have a full and rewarding life. But it is also a plan that creates awareness of mental health, supports better management of an individual's mental health, and focuses on ending any associated stigma. The bar is set and should be set high. Steps will be taken to enhance access to community-based services, and improving access to acute care services ensure that they are accessible in all regions of our province. Transformation will involve addressing gaps in our system, strengthening existing programs, and the services that people have often sought. It also includes breaking down the barriers of the stigma and timely access. I can remember so many stories when people would come and they would speak to us, and the block would always be access to service. We can see you in 3 weeks, we can see you in a month, or we can see you in 2 months, when they needed the service now. And what happens often is that if we had to wait too long, well, they just feel lost, and they feel that no one cares. So access to service is critical as we continue to address those issues. So it will be achieved through close collaboration with our regional health authorities, our municipal leaders, our community partnerships, and most importantly, those with lived experience. Another important part of our work will be the standardized mental health and addictions programs and services that are currently offered throughout our regional health authorities under one provincial model. This means that approaches to care will be consistent across all regions of our province. And I see some of our Indigenous leaders here today. And there's probably, when you look at our Indigenous groups and the disproportionate numbers that we see within those groups, we need a provincial model of care. So together we will effectively transform the mental health and addictions care system in the province of Newfoundland and Labrador. The release of today's plan will be a roadmap for achieving our shared goals and the action of the recommendations of the All-Party Committee. While we need to work smarter and within our financial means, we have allocated some $5 million this year for the immediate actions and some $7.5 million to advance the replacement of the Waterford Hospital. Examples of some of the improvements that we'll be undertaking within the coming months will include establishing mental health walk-in clinics, creating a combined inpatient and community-based service model for mental health to replace the Waterford Hospital through a series of facilities, establishing a dedicated 4-bed intensive care inpatient unit at the Health Sciences Complex for eating disorder patients, continuing to support the Opioid Action Plan with the purchase of more naloxone take-home kits. We will introduce legislation in the upcoming fall sitting of the House of Assembly for the prescription monitoring program. We are making significant progress. It's been ignored for too long. It is also progress. This progress is also supported by the federal government in the recognition of mental health. Our 10-year, $73 million agreement with the federal government will support our ability to improve health care in several priority areas, including mental health. Of this collective investment, $1.4 million will be used this year. This investment demonstrates the collective focus on addressing the demand and the specific cost pressures on providing mental health and addiction services in our province. And what about oversight? As we place a greater emphasis and align spending to achieve better outcomes, we will continue to look to the Provincial Mental Health and Addictions Advisory Council for their input on how the plan is being implemented and opportunities for improvement. The Advisory Council is made up of people with diverse backgrounds, with knowledge, and the experience in mental health and addictions, including our community service providers, advocates, social activists, healthcare providers, and persons again with lived experience. Minister Hagee will speak further to the value of the right oversight, and he will go into more details in just a few short minutes. So as I conclude today, I would like to thank you once again for your ongoing work, and I look forward to the ongoing collaboration. Today marks progress in identifying and actioning initiatives that make our healthcare system person-centered. At the core of our system is the principle of providing the right care at the right time and in the right place. The conversation does not end today. It must continue, and I want to ensure you that my door and those of my ministers are open for you. We know that success lies in collaboration between community groups, government departments, and the regional health authorities. Today, we will modernize and revitalize mental health and addictions care for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians. So I'd now like to turn it over to Dr. Hagee, Minister Hagee, to speak and to provide us some more insights and details of our plan. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Premier. And again, a special thanks to our host this morning, Joanne, and the Gathering Place. As Sister Davies said, the Gathering Place is a place that's synonymous with the themes of community, of support, dedication, and hope. And it's with the spirit of the Gathering Place that our government is moving forward to transform the delivery of mental health and addictions care in our province. We'll do that with the implementation of all 4 of the 54 recommendations in the Towards Recovery, a vision for a renewed mental health and addiction system for Newfoundland and Labrador. The 54 recommendations have been assigned short, medium, and long-term timelines for implementation. The majority of these 54 will be actioned in the short and medium term. The short-term goals will be completed by the end of this fiscal year, while medium-term goals will be realized by the end of fiscal 2020. The longer-term goals at the end of fiscal 21. Our renewed plan is built on the principles of a stepped care approach to mental health. The value of such an approach is it actually matches individuals' needs to the level of care that they need to access. It increases access to services by matching these people to appropriate levels of care. Most people, when in need, would require maybe steps 2 or 3, with fewer people needing care as the steps climb. As an example for a case of discussion, care in step 2 could be a one-time walk-in session with a counsellor, something that worked very well in Labrador West recently. While step 5 may be inpatient intensive care under the care of a psychiatrist, or our new proposals. To begin to achieve this stepped approach to appropriate care, we need the right oversight. Governance matters. So Mental Health and Addictions Advisory Council will continue to have an important role in the governance structure, providing now oversight to the implementation process. This council, as referenced by the Premier, is comprised of people with diverse backgrounds, people with knowledge and experience in mental health and addictions, including community service providers, advocates, social activists, healthcare providers, and persons with lived experience. The council reports directly to me and advises on mental health care and addictions matters for the province as a whole. They're now going to have the additional mandate of monitoring our progress on this plan. In partnership, however, with the Advisory Council, I'm proposing a new Recovery Council to be created to provide guidance on the process, supporting patients and clients through that recovery. This council, the Recovery Council, will consist of people with lived experience and their families. Their input will ensure we're meeting the needs of the people these services are designed to help. We've grouped the 54 goals and they fall into 8 areas, each of which will have a project team. Again, these teams will be comprised of people and families with lived experience, policymakers, clinicians, RHA staff, representatives from the community and government, and their insight will drive the direction within their respective areas. There is an urgency to reform mental health and addictions in this province, and the time, as the Premier said, the time is to act now. And today, we are acting to change the system. My department, in concert with the regional health authorities, will harmonise mental health and addictions programs and services currently offered through 4 regional health authorities under a single provincial model. This will be under the leadership of the Deputy Minister of Health and Community Services. This will ensure approaches to care are consistent across all the regions of the province. We will also assume responsibility for healthcare in general for people in corrections facilities throughout the province. Mobile crisis response is currently available in St. John's. It's a 2-person team, responds to crisis calls in the communities. We will introduce a new model for mobile crisis intervention teams. This new model, referred to as the Memphis model after the city where it was pioneered, will include a mental health worker and a plainclothes police officer working and travelling together in an unmarked car to respond to people in crisis. It will begin with a Train the Trainer program for police and involve healthcare providers throughout the province. This model both reduces the stigma for receiving emergency mental health services in the community, and the training it will provide will help people to be more sensitive to the problems that people in crisis face every day. The first centres for the mobile crisis intervention teams will be St. John's and Labrador City. The other major centres will follow. In addition to these, we will establish walk-in mental health clinics in major centres throughout the province by the spring of next year. In addition, we're going to introduce a pilot project for people to receive cognitive behavioural therapy online with a program called Therapist Assisted Online, or TAO. TAO is an innovative e-health technology that pairs online educational materials with clinician contact by phone, chat, or video conferencing for adults, initially with depression and anxiety. Newfoundland and Labrador will be the first province in Canada to trial this program. We will continue to support the Opioid Action Plan with the purchase of more naloxone take-home kits and the expansion of distribution sites. Finally, well, not finally, but in addition, we'll introduce prescription monitoring legislation in the House of Assembly this fall. As part of Budget 2017, $7.5 million was announced to advance replacement of the Waterford Hospital. A conceptual plan has been delivered which includes hospital and community-based mental health services throughout the province in a series of facilities, as opposed to having them concentrated in one facility in St. John's. We will engage consultants as well as clinicians and the community in finalising this plan over the next 9 months. Finally, we are leaving behind a Victorian institutional model of psychiatric care symbolised by the Waterford. Our government is advancing a modern, person-centred approach with community-based services provided where and when people need them. This plan will be ready by the end of this fiscal year. A provincial intensive inpatient program will be opened for people with eating disorders. As advocated by the Eating Disorder Foundation of Newfoundland and Labrador, we will establish a dedicated 4-bed intensive care inpatient unit at the Health Science Centre. An interdisciplinary team will be created to support this specialised provincial programme which will layer on existing services. This programme will include a psychiatric nurse, a psychologist, a dietitian and a social worker. This unit will help families during their most vulnerable moments and provide them with the supports they need. We're also planning a new opioid dependence treatment model for the province. This model will be provided by case management and rapid access to Suboxone through regional service hubs and a centre of excellence in opioid dependence treatment. As I mentioned at the onset of my remarks, the spirit of this place, of community, of support and dedication, is one with which we will undertake the mental health and addictions renewal for this province. We're going to embark on this plan together, government, health authorities, care experts and community members. We can do so, I think, with a new hope for the future of mental health and addictions care in our province. We will continue to work with our communities, our partners represented here today, and those with lived experience who will continue to guide our efforts. The dedication and the passion of the people who've been involved in this process will continue to empower us as we move forward over the next 5 years. Finally, I know that through supporting each other, we will reduce the stigma and dispel the stigma of mental health and addictions, reduce the barriers to care and mental wellness. So thank you very much for coming today, and thank you for your time.
On behalf of all the people gathered here and all the people whose lives will be made better because of what you have said this morning, we thank you, Premier. We thank you, Minister Dr. Hagee. We, as a group gathered here, represent many sectors of the society. It is a joy for us to see some of the fragmentation that we've underscored in the past being reduced, and we thank you for that vision, for that direction. We also know that each one of us and our agencies also have a role to play in this, that we have to make our own visions more interactive, less fragmented, more integrated, and we commit to you that we will do that. We also challenge you to go beyond what you have here and make sure that housing and employment and poverty reduction are consciously and intentionally intersecting with this plan. And we hope through your Advisory Council and Recovery Council that those elements will also be integrated. So we thank you for what you have done. We know you can't do it alone. We know that you need each one of us and our organizations to do it with you. And we also thank you for giving us the responsibility to hold you accountable for achieving the promise you have made to us today. So from all of us, thank you. Be assured of our support. Be assured that we will continue the kind of work we have been doing and find it maybe now with new energy and new courage because of this announcement. I thank all of you for coming. You are the final image that a group like this would gather on this very beautiful summer morning to hear this news, but to commit to live this vision ourselves, commit to hold government accountable for living this vision, and remember why we are doing this, that we need a stronger province with stronger people, with stronger communities, with respect for those who do not have the resources they need, with commitment to make available the resources we have in this province to ensure the health, the physical health, the mental health of all of us. So we invite you now to some cold water, or cool water anyway, and a cup of tea and some cookies, I think, and leave here with fire in your hearts, renewed energy and renewed courage to make this province a better province because we're doing it together. Thank you.